I actually had somebody scheduled today for as a guest, but I have to actually keep this a little short today. Unfortunately, I have a funeral to go to for someone who I served on two committees that I was on in my town: Economic Development Commission and Main Street Committee. Somebody who's in those committees with me, unfortunately, had passed away with cancer. So today is his funeral. So I gotta gonna record this, and then I gotta head out and go to that today. But yeah, Ernie was his name. He was a very good man. Actually, was the head of the Main Street Committee, and yeah, was just a member of the Economic Development Commission as well. You know, did a lot of great things for our town, and it's sad to see him pass. And yeah, just leave it at that. So yeah, sorry, my my mind kind of just went somewhere else there for now. Just speaking about Ernie, but yeah. So today I wanted to I'm gonna keep this one probably a little short, but I want to talk about like long-term goals, and then what are some steps to move in that, to start getting those goals moving forward. So I'm just going to put out a long-term goal that I have is, so basically, if you've been listening to this podcast, I've mentioned, I've been in business for a while. It's been 12 years, more than 12 years since I've started the firm. And on some of these recent ones where I'm going solo, I've kind of brought up a few times where just different things in terms of growth, steps I'm taking to try to grow. Actually today, just to kind of, I guess a little bit of an update is, I have a call with the one outsourcing company to start. They've done some work for me before. It's the 3D scanning, the robotic imaging, and on the 3D scanning side, obviously, that's what they specialize in. So the scanning they've been helping on, but they also do they'll document the scans. So they'll do like existing building drawings for me, and whether they're for me to then take and then for my own projects, or there's been some situations where other like architects and whatnot have reached out to me, and I used to do that for them, but then I've kind of passed on these projects to robotic imaging to do now. So but the one thing with them is I was like, hey, I have a bunch of jobs where I got all this drawing work to do, and I'm starting to look at it more as let's kind of rewind for a second. I was looking at the work as being sole practitioner, that I needed to do all of it, but I'm starting to look at it as because if you're outsourcing the work, then you got to pay somebody to do it, right? So whatever that cost, let's just say if it was like $50 an hour, it's going to cost me $50 an hour for them to do that, but I can do that myself, right? And take that $50 an hour. Well, in terms of, actually I was having a conversation with Jeremy Fife. He was a painter. He had been a guest of mine before, and he was actually at my house. There was some, we had some barn doors installed. We had a renovation with our master bedroom and stuff, and he had painted all that, but he had to come back. He finally got back yesterday to paint the barn doors, and it was a kind of smaller job, so he ended up painting it himself, and we got in a good conversation, being business owners and dealing with growth and things like that. So crap, man, I'm like, what was I gonna say with that is just talking about giving work to to others, and he's actually had some good growth, and he was talking about him training his people and in situations with that. Like the barn door was a smaller job, so he was like, you know what, I can do this myself, rather than having like a guy or two come out for that. And it worked out for him because I guess the way his process was he was telling me he had to prime it and then let it sit. So and then he'd come back, paint a layer, let it sit and dry, and then come back and paint the final layer. So he had two estimates that he had to go meet, with homeowners or business owners, for potential jobs. So he was like, hey, I'm going to do the primer, and then I'm going to go out to my first appointment, and then I'll come back, then I'll do the first coat, go to my second appointment, come back, and then do the final coat. So, he was like, it made sense for him to take, it was like, he had his other jobs going on. He had his, people like, he has his project managers or whoever, or, field leaders, got them going at the beginning of the day, said, hey, this is a job I'll do it myself. And it actually works out well with the 2 appointments that I had for the day. So in that situation, it made sense for him to do the work himself. But we were both, like talking about like, well, doing as the business owner, if you do the work yourself, you're actually probably, like when I was just, to give an example, like, okay, I got to pay somebody $50 an hour, like, especially in an outsourcing situation, it's $50 an hour. If I had an employee, it might be, well, no, it could be, even if I was paying somebody $25 an hour, it's still going to be like $50 an hour. Because if I had a full-time employee, benefits, different things like that, it kind of becomes $50 an hour anyway. But anyway, so the, sorry, I can't be having email and stuff up when I'm doing this. So, okay, yeah, so it costs $50 an hour to pay somebody, and I'm thinking, oh, there's a savings there for me if I just do it myself. Well, no, if I charge, like, so right now my principal rate, which would be my personal rate, in my hourly rate sheet is $150 an hour. So I started looking at it and thinking that I'm like, hey, you know what? It's actually if I'm doing the work that somebody else could be doing, it's actually costing me $150 an hour. It's not costing me $50 an hour. So taking that mindset now, I'm like, moving on. Okay, well, what can I? There's kind of this thing where you gotta look at. I was actually watching a video the other day. It was I think I probably mentioned the YouTube channel called The Futur, and it's spelled Futur. There's no E at the end. What's the guy's name? Chris Do. And he has a lot of great videos, and he's in the graphic design industry, so and video production type stuff. So really great stuff. But he's talking about design professional services. So there's a lot of things that he speaks about that do relate to me and what I do. So he had a video. It's actually like a 2.5 hour long video. It's kind of like he has these like whiteboard sessions, which I believe he has like some type of like pro group or something. So he has these different, sessions. And this one was talking about somebody who was actually in my position. Somebody's going as he said freelancer to having an actual like firm or business, but still, one person to growing to having more people. So a lot of different factors, like the factor there, like the $150 an hour. I realized that there was a concept he had related to that I was like, the light bulb kind of went off in my head with that. But then the other part, or one of the other parts that he had in the video was he presented, he's like, okay, you're the business owner. So what are things that you have to do, right? And a lot of the have to do as a business owner had more to do with like business development, operations, setting up the systems, things like that. It wasn't necessarily the work, so that kind of flipped the mindset a little bit for me, where I'm like, back of my head, it's been there in the past year or so, but I'm like, I gotta get away from drafting up, drawing up these wall sections. I can't be doing all this. I'm like, okay, fine. Like, I personally have had this mindset for so long that I'm like, hey, I'm good at doing the drawings. I'm good at Revit, right? I'm good at the software. So, and I do work where I'm doing, consulting work, but I'm finding what's happening for me is I kind of am dipping my toes in this pool and I'm dipping my toes in that pool. But I'm not jumping the whole way in. I don't, and because I only have 2 feet, I only have 10 toes, right? But let's just say if I start having somebody who is that BIM consultant who can jump in that pool for me, or that person who does the drafting work, or that architect who can do the residential projects for me and just jump in that pool, so I'm just looking at these long-term goals of growth are like, I'm like, I got to start taking this first step. So in that case, that's been in my head for a while. So like I have this call I was just mentioning with Robotic Imaging later on this afternoon, and it's taking those first steps and of, hey, I have this project. It's ongoing. I mean, I've been working on it for a while. I just got comments from the structural engineer. I need help finishing up. Like I've always, as I mentioned before, I was kind of like the front end. I was having help. I've never was having a lot of help on the back end. So it's a good process for me. Where I was kind of like really stuck with that for a bit was that I was like, it's gonna just take me. It's gonna take me less time for me just to do it myself. And is it gonna take longer this first round? Yes, it absolutely will. But if I train this first layer, there's this first call today, and I train the second layer, and third layer, fourth layer, etc., whatever, however many layers there are, right? Anybody who's helping me out doesn't have to be even at the level that I'm at right now, right? But if they can be 75% of the level I'm at, that's going to save me so much time, and all kind. It's just going to be it's just going to be overall. It's going to be a good thing. So, taking that first step, it's a step that I've just kind of resisted for so long, or I've done with no plan. That's like the other part is I've done it before, but I've kind of topped my head, just like oh do this. I've hired employees before, but I never really had a. I was like, I knew I needed it, so I just hired them, but I didn't have a plan. So now I have a plan. So that's one part that is moving forward. Now, another long-term goal for me is, well, actually, I got one other point I want to make with that before I move on to the next point, is the conversation I was having with Jeremy yesterday. One thing that I realized, and I'm pretty sure he had the same realization for his own business, was doing this all myself. Like I was looking at numbers for like let's say like the past 3 years, 4 years, whatever. I was hitting a ceiling. It was like it didn't matter whatever I was doing. Like I felt super busy, in the past year. It is like there's a lot of stuff going on. I got four more projects I got to meet in the next week or so that are starting up, and I got 4 that I was hoping to be done. They're not done. That's where the help, robotic imaging help, and anybody else help is going to come from. But even though I felt so busy, I was still, the revenue that was coming in at the end of the year for the past couple of years has been the same. Doesn't matter if I felt busy or if I felt slow. I was getting the same amount of revenue. So I'm realizing, I'm like, okay, I've hit a ceiling, and there's no way I can get past that ceiling without growing, without having more people involved, without teaching people things I know that could, benefit me as well. Benefit them, benefit me, right? So that's kind of like another point with it. So next point. So the long-term goal, one thing I realized in the past 12 years is here. I'm sitting in an office, right? This is not I'm not in my home, but I'm in a building that my family owns, but the rest of this building is my wife's ballet school, right? So I'm kind of in this room in the back, right? Previous office I had was my own. It was my business, but when I got that building, that landlord, there was a space in the front on the street and a space in the back. He would only rent me the back space because he was like, because it was Main Street in town. And he was like, I would rather have a business that like a retail business that would welcome foot traffic to the street. He didn't feel like my business would get the foot traffic. I mean, he was right. I don't have a ton of clients that come here, So even though it would, that would be ideal, is to have you want to have a business. Like if you're on a main street in town, you want to have a business with your sign out front, and people see it, pass by every day, and all that. There's definitely benefits there, and but I was in the back with no sign, and still getting business. Heck, I get a lot. And most of my business is like Google search, or people go on my website and fill out the contact form. That's where I'm, getting a lot of my business. I'm getting plenty of business that way. But but yeah. So I was in the back. People didn't necessarily know I was there. I had a period of time where I did work from home, and then previous to that, I had a space in Philadelphia, but I was in a building that was my client's. He was a lawyer. You would never know that I was there. I was actually in a great, I was near Rittenhouse Square in Philadelphia, like prime area, right? But again, no sign, no, I had an address. You could find me online, but you'd never know that I was located there. I mean, I probably had so many, friends of mine who probably walked by my office all the time, never even knew I was there, right? And then, well, actually previous to that was like when I started, and I did start from the house. So I've realized that I've had a number of locations over the years, but I've never been like, a place that people could come to or know that I'm there or I'm even featured. Heck, and I've realized over the years, like I have 3 windows here in my office, and I mean, if you're seeing the video, you can see in the back, I keep my blinds closed. Like I'm just like hiding. This is like my little hobbit hole or whatever. Like I'm like not Frodo. What's the guy's name? Bilbo. Bilbo Baggins. Like no, I don't want to hear anybody. The beginning of Lord of the Rings, right? You don't want anybody seeing him. So long-term goal for me that I'm gonna put it out here is that having my own location, but making it obviously be my office, but also like making it a destination of some sort. So I think talk in like the architecture community, we can be like, oh well, how do you market your services? Well, like one of the things you can always say, but if you're especially for it's more for the business side, but in some ways you could even say it for a home, because it's almost like a personal brand is your home, right? Is one of your biggest marketing tools can be your location, especially for businesses that where the business is done in the location. So like a restaurant or a gym or something like that, like the facility that people are coming to for that service is very important. So looking at it as an architect now, I had mentioned that okay, I don't have like over the years I've had like a ton of clients don't come to my location, but what if the location can market my location itself can market my services? meaning that the location is well designed, has a lot of sunlight, like things that I would want to have in buildings for clients. Have it make like I'm a client, right? So I have a location that people want to come to, and on the personal side, I've realized too is like recently I've had a few friends of mine who we started working out together on like Fridays, and they came here. I mean, it was a ballet school, so I was like, hey, just come on over here. Well, that kind of got shot down because it's like, hey, we don't have, like, we're doing, I do like, fight training or whatever. Not that we're like sparring or anything here, but still, the ballet school is covered for ballet instructions. Even though this isn't necessarily, these guys aren't coming here and paying me to do this, we're just working out, but, there's some concerns that there may be some, if somebody did get hurt, just to slip and fall or something like that, there might be some insurance issues. So that kind of got shut down. So we're not working out here anymore. But I kind of think that one of the aspects I'd like to possibly include is having, well, I always just think it's like a Joe Rogan type complex. Not that you see pictures or something online sometimes. Like, I've never necessarily seen like him do a tour of his place, but you do see clips of like he has a gym there, or he has like an archery range, or whatever else he has there, float tank, things, sauna and stuff like that. But having, if I have my own location, is having something like that possibly there to have people come. Like, I don't want it to be like I have zero interest of opening in my own gym, and having classes and stuff like that. But if I have like something that, obviously I can utilize, heck, have a space where if I have employees and they come there, the employees can utilize it as well. But also, like, here I'm doing this podcast. This is another thing, is like a podcast studio, like having, like right now, if you're watching this video, it's just the back, you can see it's my office wall. It's like I don't have anything set up in here, and I'm going to keep on doing these videos. I'm like, I want to set something up where I have some type of studio space for this, because that can grow as well. So, so I look at it as, and I believe I had spoke recently. I don't remember which episode it was, but like kind of like attraction equals marketing, or marketing equals attraction, whatever. But yeah, but having that place down the road that attracts people to come to. So I guess really, so that's kind of like the long-term thing, is to have a space eventually for for the office, but also for a couple of these other ancillary things too, that people want to come to, So I guess really then my next question from that I've been thinking about now, is okay, so here's a long-term goal of what I want to eventually have down, 3 years, 5 years down the road, whatever it may be. And I will say that a few months ago I did look at a couple spaces. Not necessarily what I wanted to go. So what, there were, it was just it was like actually, like looking at purchasing an existing building. But what was I going to say? But, that's it. So the other part with the being an architect is, now my thought is like, well, what if it's either finding like not a big, but, a vanilla box type space, or land even, I don't know. The land actually, I think with what I do is probably a little bit more attractive because then it's just a total. And I mean, it's not a total empty slate. I think one thing with architecture that is like even if it's a piece of land, it's not an empty slate. There are factors that are already come into play and that drive that design, right? The view, the size of the lot. The size. Like one of my favorite projects. Little side tangent here, but one of my favorite projects was for a residential was a weird shaped lot that was on a waterfront. That's like it was like kind of an L shape at an angle type thing. So, but anyway, I'm going to actually have to get going here. So I'm going to try to wrap this up. But yeah, so so there's the long term goal. Let's say 3 to 5 years from now, love to have I'd like to have my own location somewhere that I own that has the office and the podcast studio, the gym, things like that. So what's the first step that I take? That's like my question right now is like what can I do now that leads me to that? I mean, I think there's some obvious looking into real estate, trying to figure out finances, stuff like that. I want to throw that off to the side, because that absolutely needs to happen. But what are some other things that can be done now to do that? Is there? I'm going to just think of the podcast at the moment. Is there a place maybe I could take the podcast right now? Partner with somebody else. I know that there's like these kind of podcast networks. Maybe there's something there. With the gym part is maybe there's something there that I could do with an existing gym and say, hey, I got these group of guys or girls, or they want, we're all working out together. What if we came to your gym on Fridays, but also became clients or something? Those are just two quick ideas. So, got to run. So I'm gonna wrap this up now. But there's just some of the thoughts of like, hey, here's a long-term goal. But what's that first step you gotta take for? Ooh, excuse me. Stomach. I don't know if you heard that or not, but my stomach just growled real loud. So what are those? What if you have a long-term goal, what are those first steps? How do you figure out those steps? So I'll leave you with that question. So like I said, I gotta run now. So hope everybody's doing good. And if you want to, whether you see this, on YouTube, podcast, whether it's posted somewhere or something, answer that question. What are your thoughts? What could you, what do you think the first steps should be? Whether it's my scenario, or what if maybe you have one? Like, what's your long-term goal and what's your first step for something like that? So, yeah, let me know. And, so we'll just, like I said, we'll wrap it up there. And, hope everybody's doing well. And until next time, it's Rich the Architect. We're signing off. See ya.